Her corrupt boss fired her for saying no. He didn't realize she was about to become his queen. Chapter 1. 144 lilies. Rynna counted them with a single glance as she marched through the lobby of the Wolf Hotel. They were white, perfect, and completely wrong for the alpha of the Northern Pack. "Get them out," she said. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. The junior manager, a boy barely out of his pup years, scrambled to keep up with her clicking heels. "But, Miss Sinclair," the florist said. "The florist is wrong." Rynna stopped. She turned to face him. The air smelled of floor wax, rain, and his fear. "The Northern Alpha is allergic to lilies. If he sneezes during the royal gala tonight, you won't just lose your job. You'll lose your head." The boy went pale. In fact, he looked like he might pass out. "Move," she ordered. He ran. Rynna took a breath. She smoothed the front of her blazer. It was armor, black, tailored, sharp. It held her together when her wolf wanted to claw through her skin. She checked her watch. 6 hours until the gala, 6 hours until the king arrived. Everything had to be perfect. She walked toward the elevators. The hotel hummed around her. It was a machine, and she was the engine. Without her, the gears would grind to a halt. Even so, nobody said, "Thank you." Nobody noticed Rynna until something broke. A bellhop dropped a luggage cart near the entrance. Crash. Her inner wolf snarled. It wanted to snap at the clumsiness. "Control," she told it. "Be the director, not the beast." She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the penthouse. The doors slid shut, cutting off the noise. Silence. Finally, she leaned her head back against the cool mirror. Her reflection looked tired. There were shadows under her eyes that concealer couldn't hide. She was 29, and she felt 100. But then, her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her pocket. The screen lit up with a single name. Vane. Her stomach turned over. It felt like swallowing ice. Vane was the general manager, her boss, and he was the only stain on this perfect hotel. He shouldn't be calling her. Not now. He should be greeting the VIPs. She answered. "Yes, sir?" "Rynna." Vane's voice oozed through the speaker. It was too smooth, like oil. "Come to my office. We need to discuss your bonus." Her grip tightened on the phone. "I'm handling the flower crisis, sir. Can it wait?" "No." The word was flat, heavy. "Now, Rynna." The line went dead. She stared at the phone. Something felt wrong. The hair on her arms stood up. It wasn't just annoyance. It was warning. Her wolf paced in the back of her mind, restless. To make things worse, the elevator jolted. She took a deep breath. She fixed her hair. She was Rynna Sinclair. She could handle anything. She could handle a lazy boss. She could handle a flower crisis. She could handle the storm brewing outside. She just hoped she could handle the storm brewing inside her. The doors opened. Rynna stepped out. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking toward the end of her life.
Boredom was a poison, and Ravok was dying of it. He sat at the head of the long mahogany table. The council chamber smelled of old paper and dust. It smelled of lies. "The southern border tax is down 3%, Elder Marcus droned on. He was a gray wolf, old and patchy. He liked the sound of his own voice. "We believe the farmers are holding back grain." Ravok stared out the window. Rain lashed against the glass. It blurred the city lights into streaks of gray and gold. His wolf paced under his skin. "Let me out." It was a constant roar in his blood. He was the Alpha King. He was supposed to be ruling. Instead, he was listening to math. "Your Majesty?" Marcus asked. Ravok turned his head slowly. The movement was heavy, predatory. The room went silent. "Do you think I care about grain, Marcus?" Ravok's voice was a low rumble. It vibrated in the wood of the table. Marcus swallowed hard. Well, the economy." "The economy is fine," Ravok said. He stood up. The chair scraped loud against the floor. The farmers are hungry. Let them keep the grain. But the law. I am the law. He walked toward the door. The guards scrambled to open it. They feared him. Everyone feared him. Not because he was cruel, but because he was empty. He walked down the long marble hallway. The palace was a cage, a very big, very expensive cage. Sir, his security chief, Kale, jogged to catch up. The gala starts in 4 hours. You need to dress. The tailors are waiting. Tell them to leave, Ravok said. He didn't stop walking. But, where are you going? Ravok reached into his pocket. His fingers closed around a cold metal key. It was heavy, solid. Out, Ravok said. It's pouring rain, sir. The roads are dangerous. Good. Ravok pushed through the side doors. The wind hit him like a punch. It was cold and wet and real. He breathed it in. Ozone. Mud. There she was. The Koenigsegg Gemera. Matte black. Sleek. A monster of an engine wrapped in carbon fiber. It cost more than most wolves made in a lifetime, and it was the only thing that could run fast enough to keep up with his thoughts. He slid into the driver's seat. The leather creaked. He pressed the start button. The engine roared to life. It sounded like a beast waking up, a growl that shook his chest. Yes, his wolf agreed. Run. Kale was yelling something at the door, waving his arms. Ravok didn't listen. He slammed the door shut. He shifted into gear. The tires spun on the wet pavement, squealing. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he had to drive. He had to feel something other than the crushing weight of the crown. He pressed the gas pedal down. The car shot forward into the dark, into the rain, toward something that would change everything. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just a crash waiting to happen.
The office smelled like cheap cologne and stale ambition. Rynna stood in front of the desk. Her hands were clasped behind her back. She kept her chin high. Vane sat in his leather chair. He was smiling. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile a wolf gives before it bites. You look tense, Rynna, he said. He swirled a glass of amber liquid. Relax. Have a drink. I'm on duty, sir, she said. Her voice was ice. Always working. He stood up. He walked around the desk. He was too close. You've done a good job with the hotel. Profits are up. The gala is. Almost ready. It is ready, she corrected him. I fixed the catering issue. I fixed the flowers. I know. He leaned against the edge of the desk. His eyes traveled over her. They felt slimy. But there's still the matter of your bonus. The one you asked for. I earned that bonus, Rynna said. I did the work of 3 managers this year. Vane laughed. It was a dry, scratching sound. Work is boring, Rynna. I need loyalty. He reached out. His hand brushed her arm. Rynna took a step back. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her wolf bristled, fur standing on end. Danger. What do you want, Vane? You know what I want? His voice dropped. It became husky. The suite upstairs is empty. The king won't be here for hours. Come with me. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Excuse me? Rynna whispered. Don't play dumb, Vane snapped. His face twisted. You want the money? You want to keep your job? Make me happy. It's a simple trade. Rage. It hit Rynna like a physical blow. It burned in her chest. It wasn't just anger. It was insult. He thought she was something he could buy. She looked at the glass of water on his desk. Condensation dripped down the side. Without thinking, she grabbed it. Here's my answer, she said. She threw the water. Ice cubes and freezing liquid splashed across the front of his expensive gray trousers. Vane gasped. He jumped back. The water soaked into his crotch instantly. He looked ridiculous. You, he spluttered. You little. I'd rather starve, Rynna said. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. I'd rather live in the woods like a rogue than let you touch me. Vane's face turned purple. The vein in his forehead popped. You're fired, he screamed. Spittle flew from his mouth. Get out! You're finished! He slammed his hand on the intercom button. Security, get in here. The door burst open. 2 large guards rushed in. Escort this. Trash out of my building, Vane snarled. He was wiping at his wet pants with a napkin. And strip her badge. One of the guards grabbed Rynna's arm. Don't touch me, she hissed. She ripped her arm away. I can walk. She turned. She didn't look back at Vane. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. She walked out of the office. She walked past the staring secretaries. She walked through the lobby she had polished to perfection. The guards followed her like she was a criminal. They reached the front doors. One guard reached out and yanked the ID badge from her blazer. It tore the fabric. Get out, he said. He shoved her. Rynna stumbled. She hit the wet pavement outside. The automatic doors slid shut behind her. It was pouring. The rain was heavy, cold, and relentless. It soaked her hair in seconds. It ruined her blazer. It mixed with the hot tears stinging her eyes. She stood there on the curb. She clutched her cardboard box of personal things. She had nothing. No job, no money, no umbrella. She looked down the dark road. Headlights cut through the gloom. She stepped off the curb. She didn't look. She didn't care. Screech. Tires screamed against wet asphalt. A black car spun toward her. Rynna froze. The headlights blinded her. As the car slid closer, she didn't scream. She just thought, finally, my luck runs out. The world ended in a scream of rubber. Rynna squeezed her eyes shut. She waited for the impact. She waited for the crushing weight of metal against bone. Screech. The sound tore through the wet air, deafening and sharp. But then, silence. Rynna opened one eye. The car, a sleek, matte black predator of a machine, had stopped. It was sideways, blocking the entire road. The front bumper was exactly 3 inches from her shins. Heat radiated from the engine, warring with the freezing rain. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Thump, thump, thump. Before she could move, the driver's door flew open. A man stormed out. He was huge. That was her first thought. He was a wall of muscle wrapped in a tuxedo that cost more than her life. Rain instantly soaked his dark hair, plastering it to his forehead, but he didn't seem to notice. He looked like a god of thunder who had just fallen to earth, and he was furious. "Do you have a death wish, woman?" he roared. His voice was deep, a bass note that vibrated in the soles of her feet. Rynna blinked. The shock vanished. In its place, the anger she had been holding back since Vane's office exploded. "Do you have a license, maniac?" she shouted back. He stopped. He looked stunned. Clearly people didn't yell at him. He gestured wildly at the car. "I almost destroyed a $3 million hypercar because you decided to take a stroll in traffic. And I almost dropped my stapler," Rynna shrieked. She hugged her soggy cardboard box tighter. "We all have problems." "Your stapler?" He stared at her. Rain dripped from his nose. "Are you insane?" "I am unemployed," she yelled, stepping closer to him. She didn't know why she wasn't afraid. He was terrifying. He was towering over her. Yet, something inside her, something buried deep, snapped its teeth. "I just got fired. I am wet. I am cold. And you almost turned me into a speed bump." She was shaking. Not from cold, from adrenaline. The man stared at her. His eyes were strange. Gold? No. Amber. They were burning. In the span of a breath, the air between them changed. It grew heavy, charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. He took a step toward her. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked hungry. "You're shaking," he said. His voice dropped. It wasn't a roar now. It was a rumble. "I'm freezing," she snapped. She tried to step back, but her heels slipped on the wet pavement. She flailed. A large hand shot out. He caught her arm. His grip was iron, but it was also hot, searingly hot. Zap. A shock of electricity shot up her arm, straight to her chest. Rynna gasped, her eyes locked on his. For a second, the rain seemed to stop. The traffic noise faded. There was just him, the heat of his hand, the gold of his eyes. "Let go," she whispered, but she didn't pull away. "No," he said. He was staring at her neck. He inhaled deeply, his nostrils flaring. What followed was the strangest sensation Rynna had ever felt. She felt seen, hunted. "Who are you?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just pulled her closer, effortlessly, as if she weighed nothing. "You're coming with me," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an order. And for the first time in her life, Rynna didn't want to argue.
Rain, vanilla, fury. The scent hit Ravok like a physical blow. It slammed into his lungs, drowning out the smell of burnt rubber and ozone. It was intoxicating. It was sweet, but with a sharp, spicy edge that made his mouth water. His wolf woke up. It didn't just wake up. It lunged. It slammed against the bars of his control, roaring a single, undeniable word. "Mate." Ravok froze. His hand was wrapped around her arm. Her skin was cold from the rain, but beneath it, he could feel her pulse. It was racing. Rabbit heart, he thought. Fast, frantic, but she wasn't a rabbit. She was glaring at him. Her hair was a wet mess. Her mascara was running. She was clutching a box of office supplies like it was a treasure chest, and she had just yelled at the Alpha King. She was perfect. "You're coming with me," he said. The words tore out of his throat before he could stop them. She blinked. "Excuse me? Get in the car," he growled. She yanked her arm back. "No, I don't get in cars with strange men, especially ones who drive like they're in a video game." She turned around. She actually turned her back on him. Ravok's eyes narrowed. "Chase her," his wolf urged. "Catch her. Bite her." "I own the car," Ravok said, stepping into her path. "I own the road. And in about 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure I'm going to own you." She stopped. She looked at him, her mouth falling open. "You are arrogant." "I am accurate." He moved closer. He needed her out of the rain. She was shivering, and every tremor in her body felt like a failure on his part. An alpha protects his mate. That was the law of nature. "Get in," he enunciated. "I'm walking," she said stubbornly. "You are 5 miles from the city center. It is 40 degrees, and you are holding a stapler." He leaned down, bringing his face inches from hers. "Get in the damn car, or I will throw you over my shoulder and put you there myself." Her eyes widened. She weighed the threat. She looked at the pouring rain. She looked at the warm, leather interior of the Chimera. "I'm not sitting on the leather in wet clothes," she muttered. "It'll ruin the finish." Ravok almost laughed. She was worried about the upholstery. "I'll buy a new car," he said. He opened the passenger door. He waited. She hesitated. Then, with a huff of annoyance, she climbed in. Ravok slammed the door. He took a second to lean against the wet metal of the roof. He closed his eyes. "Mine." The realization was terrifying. He had spent years avoiding this. He didn't want a mate. He didn't want a weakness. The council would eat her alive. His enemies would use her as a target. But then, he remembered the fire in her eyes when she screamed at him. Maybe she wasn't a target. Maybe she was a weapon. He walked around to the driver's side. Moments later, the fear of his title vanished. He wasn't the king right now. He was just a male who had found his female. He slid into the seat. The car was filled with her scent. It was overwhelming. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. He had to get her name. He had to know who she was. And then, God help anyone who tried to take her from him.
The car smelled like him. Leather, musk, power. Rynna sat stiffly in the passenger seat. The heater was blasting, warming her frozen skin, but she couldn't stop shivering. The man, the maniac, slid into the driver's seat. The car dipped under his weight. He was huge. In the confined space, He felt even bigger. His thigh brushed against the center console, inches from her leg. Her body reacted instantly. Heat pooled in her stomach. "Stop it," she told herself. "He's a stranger. A rich, arrogant stranger." He put the car in gear. He didn't look at her. "Where to?" he asked. His voice was rougher now, strained. "East Side Apartments," Rynna said quietly. "Please." He pulled the car back onto the road. The engine purred, a low, dangerous sound. "Why were you fired?" The question was sudden. Rynna looked out the window. The rain blurred the city lights. "I don't want to talk about it. Tell me. Why do you care?" He glanced at her. His eyes flashed. "Because you were angry enough to walk into traffic. That requires a specific kind of rage." Rynna sighed. She looked at her box, at the picture frame of her parents face down on top of her files. "My boss," she said. The bitterness coated her tongue. "Vane. He offered me a promotion. A bonus." The car swerved slightly. And the price was me." Rynna swallowed the lump in her throat. "He told me to come to his suite, to Weirlax. I told him I'd rather starve." The air in the car changed instantly. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Rynna looked at the driver. His hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard the leather groaned. His jaw was clenched tight enough to snap steel. "He touched you?" The voice didn't sound human. It sounded like gravel grinding together. "No," Rynna said quickly. She was suddenly terrified of him. I poured ice water on him, and then he fired me." "He fired you," the man repeated. 2 hours before the royal gala." "Yes." Rynna let out a dry laugh. "Good luck to him. The fire suppression system on the 3rd floor is glitching. The VIP list is a mess. Without me, that party is going to be a disaster." She leaned her head back against the seat. "But it's not my problem anymore." Silence stretched between them. She expected him to keep driving toward her apartment, toward her sad, empty living room, where she would eat ice cream and cry. Instead, the car slowed. He made a U-turn. The tires shrieked again. Rynna grabbed the handle. "What are you doing? My apartment is the other way." "We're not going to your apartment," he said. He looked at her. A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. It was the kind of smile that toppled empires. "Where are we going?" Rynna asked, her breath hitching. "We're going back to the party," he said softly. "What? No, I can't," Rynna panicked. "Vane will have me arrested. I don't have a badge. I don't have a dress." "You don't need a badge," he said. He accelerated. The force pushed her back into the seat. "And you don't need a dress to outshine everyone in that room." "Who are you?" Rynna whispered. The question hung in the air, heavy and inevitable. He didn't answer. He just drove. He drove like a man on a mission of war. Rynna looked at his profile. She should be scared. She should be jumping out of the car. But because of that look in his eye, she felt a thrill race up her spine. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one handling the problem. She was the problem, and he was the solution. The doors of the Wolf Hotel didn't just open, they parted like the Red Sea. Rynna stepped out of the matte black car. Her legs felt like jelly. Her blazer was ruined. Her hair was a bird's nest of frizz and rain. She looked like a drowned rat in a room full of peacocks. "Don't run," she told herself. "Don't you dare run." "Chin up," the man beside her murmured. He offered her his arm. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a lifeline. Rynna took it. His tuxedo sleeve was dry, warm, and expensive. Her wet fingers stained the fabric instantly. What followed was a walk that felt like a march to the gallows. They entered the grand ballroom. The music was soft, a string quartet playing something classical and boring. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and fresh lilies. "Wait," Rynna thought, panic spiking. "Lilies! I told them to remove the lilies." But then the room went silent. It started at the door and rippled outward. Conversations died, glasses lowered. 100 pairs of eyes turned toward them. They weren't looking at the handsome stranger. They were looking at her. Rynna Sinclair, the woman who had been dragged out by security 2 hours ago. "She's wet," a duchess whispered near the entrance. "Is that the fired manager?" Someone else muttered. Rynna's face burned. Heat flooded her cheeks. She wanted to shrink. She wanted to dissolve into the marble floor. In the span of a breath, the man beside her squeezed her hand. "Let them stare," he said. His voice was low, meant only for her. "They aren't looking at your clothes, Rynna. They are looking at who is holding you." She looked up at him. His jaw was set. His amber eyes were scanning the room, daring anyone to speak. He didn't look like a guest. He looked like he owned the building. In fact, he looked like he owned the world. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because," he said, pulling her closer. "You didn't bow." Before she could ask what that meant, the crowd parted again. Vane was coming. He walked through the guests with a glass of scotch in his hand. He looked smug, triumphant, until he saw Rynna. His smile vanished. "You!" Vane barked. His voice echoed in the silent room. "I told security to throw you in the gutter. How dare you show your face here?" Rynna flinched. Old habits died hard. He was still her boss. He still held her future in his hands. Or so she thought. Vane marched up to them. He ignored the tall man beside her. He pointed a shaking finger at Rynna's nose. "Security!" Vane screamed. "Get this trash out of here, and call the police for trespassing." 2 guards started to move forward. Rynna stepped back. She prepared for the humiliation. She prepared for the end. Instead, the man beside her laughed. It was a dark, terrifying sound. "Trash?" the stranger asked. He stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. The temperature in the room seemed to drop to freezing. "You are speaking to my date," the stranger said softly. "And I suggest you lower your finger before I remove it from your hand."
The beta smelled like sour milk. It was the scent of fear masked by arrogance. Vane. The name tasted like dirt in Ravok's mouth. Ravok watched the little man puff up his chest. Vane had no idea who he was talking to. He just saw a tuxedo. He didn't see the wolf. "Who do you think you are?" Vane sneered, looking Ravok up and down. "Do you know who runs this city? I am the general manager of the Wolf Hotel. I can have you banned from every establishment in the territory." As the silence stretched, Ravok felt a smile tug at his lips. It wasn't a nice smile. "General manager," Ravok repeated. He tasted the title. A middle management position. Easily replaceable. "Excuse me?" Vane sputtered. "You fired this woman," Ravok said, his voice carrying to the back of the room, "because she refused to sleep with you." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Liar!" Vane yelled. He turned red. "She's a liar. She was incompetent. She was stealing." Between one breath and the next, Ravok moved. He didn't shift. He didn't need to. He simply let the alpha aura, the crushing weight of his dominance, slam into the room. Boom. It wasn't a sound. It was a pressure. Every wolf in the room felt it. It forced heads down. It forced knees to bend. Vane choked. He grabbed his throat, his eyes bulging. "Incompetent?" Ravok asked. He took a step closer. "She is the only reason this building hasn't burned down. She is the only one who knows the fire suppression system is failing on the 3rd floor. She is the only one who knows the VIP list is a disaster because you were too busy drinking scotch to manage it." Rynna gasped beside him. "How did you know?" "I listen," Ravok said. He turned his gaze to Vane. "You wanted a bonus, Vane? Here it is." Ravok reached into his jacket. He pulled out the royal seal, a heavy gold medallion. He held it up. "I am King Ravok," he thundered. The room dropped. Literally. Guests fell to their knees. Waiters bowed so low their noses touched the floor. Even the music stopped. Vane turned the color of ash. He looked at the seal. He looked at Ravok. And then he looked at Rynna. Your Majesty. Vane squeaked. You are fired, Ravok said. You are stripped of your rank. You are stripped of your assets. And if I ever see you near Miss Sinclair again, I will hunt you myself. Moments later, 2 guards grabbed Vane. Not Rynna, Vane. They dragged him away, his heels scraping the marble, begging for mercy. Ravok didn't watch him go. He turned to Rynna. She was staring at him. Her eyes were wide, filled with shock and something else. Fear? No. Awe? You're the king, she whispered. I yelled at the king about a stapler. You did, Ravok said. His anger vanished. The warmth returned. He reached out. He brushed a wet lock of hair from her cheek. And now, he said, offering his hand, you are going to dance with the king, because you are not fired, Rynna. You are reinstated as general manager. Her heart skipped. He could hear it. I'm dressed like a drowned rat, she stammered. No, Ravok said. He pulled her into his arms. You are dressed like a queen who survived the storm.
Eventually, the music stopped. But the trouble was just beginning. 3 days had passed since the gala. Rynna sat in the general manager's office, Vane's old office. She had sanitized it 3 times. It smelled of lemon and victory now. She was the boss. The king had declared it. However, dating a king was harder than running a hotel. Gifts arrived every hour. Rare chocolates, silk dresses, a new stapler made of solid gold, which was ridiculous, but sweet. Rynna tried to focus on the budget reports. Knock, knock. The door opened. It wasn't Ravok. It was an older woman. She was small, elegant, and terrifying. She wore pearls that cost more than the hotel, and her gray hair was pinned into a crown of braids. Her scent was sharp lavender and steel. Queen Mother Alara. Rynna stood up immediately. Your Highness. Alara didn't bow. She didn't smile. She walked into the room and ran a gloved finger over the desk. Dust, Alara said. I beg your pardon, Rynna asked. There is dust on the frame. Alara looked at Rynna. Her eyes were like Ravok's, but without the warmth. They were judging calculators. My son tells me you are competent. I see a woman in a polyester suit who doesn't know how to manage a cleaning crew. Rynna stiffened. Control, she told herself. Don't throw water on the Queen Mother. I am focusing on the structural repairs, Your Highness, Rynna said smoothly. Dust can wait. The safety of the guests cannot. Excuses, Alara sniffed. You are Rynna Sinclair. No pack, no lineage. Parents were. Factory workers? See. My parents were honest workers, Rynna said, her voice tightening. Honest, Alara scoffed. Honesty does not rule a kingdom, child. Strength does. Breeding does. The air thickened. Alara walked closer. She looked Rynna up and down. Vane tells me you are a manipulator, a gold digger who trapped my son with a pretty face and a hard luck story. Vane is a liar, Rynna said. Perhaps, Alara smiled thin. Or perhaps he sees what my son is too blinded by lust to see. You are weak, Rynna. You are a spreadsheet in a world of claws. Rynna walked around the desk. She met the older woman's gaze. I survived, Vane, Rynna said. I survived the streets. I survived your son's driving. Do not mistake manners for weakness, Alara. Alara's eyebrows shot up. In the quiet that followed, Alara laughed softly. You have a tongue, Alara admitted. But do you have teeth? Test me, Rynna dared. Very well. Alara turned to the window. She looked out at the dense forest that bordered the palace grounds. The royal hunt is tomorrow. It is traditional for the king's potential mate to join. Rynna felt a cold chill. She was a city wolf. She hunted bargains, not deer. I'll be there, Rynna lied. Good, Alara said. Because out there, Rynna, the spreadsheets don't save you. Only the strongest survive. Alara turned back. her eyes gleaming. "Try not to die," the Queen Mother said. "It would be so inconvenient for the paperwork." She walked out. Rynna sank into her chair. She looked at the gold stapler. She didn't know what scared her more, the assassin in the woods, or the woman who had just invited her to tea and death. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe, Rynna thought, grabbing the phone to call Ravok, it was just another mess she had to clean up.
The tea set was porcelain, delicate, breakable. Ravok stared at it, resisting the urge to sweep the entire tray off the table. "Cancel the hunt," he said. His voice was low, a warning growl trapped in a human throat. Queen Mother Alara took a sip of Earl Grey. She didn't flinch. She sat by the fireplace in her private study, looking every inch the matriarch who had buried a king and raised another. "Don't be dramatic, Ravok," she said calmly. "It is tradition. The pack needs to see if your choice can handle the woods. If she can't track a rabbit, how can she lead a council meeting?" Despite that, Ravok smelled the lie. It clung to her like secondhand smoke. His mother wasn't cruel by nature. She was protective. But someone had twisted that protection into paranoia. "This isn't about rabbits," Ravok said. He paced the room. "You've been talking to Vane." Alara set the cup down. Clink. "Vane is concerned for the stability of the throne," she said stiffly. "He says this girl is reckless, that she disrespects our ways." "He is a snake," Ravok snapped, "and he is poisoning you." To make things worse, Ravok caught a scent near the window. It was faint, fading, but it was there. Cheap cologne and bitterness. Vane had been here, recently. Ravok walked to the window. The woods outside were thick with mist. They looked peaceful, but his instincts screamed otherwise. The hair on his arm stood up. "I am forbidding Rynna from going," Ravok decided. He turned back to his mother. "She has already accepted," Alara said, a challenge in her eyes. "If you stop her now, the council will think she is a coward. Is that what you want for your queen?" Ravok clenched his jaw. He was trapped. If he stopped the hunt, Rynna looked weak. If he let it happen, she was in danger. Eventually, he exhaled. A sharp, frustrated breath. "Fine," he said, "but I am leading the royal guard, and I will be watching." "Watch all you like," Alara said, picking up her knitting. "But the woods reveal the truth, my son. We shall see what she is made of." Ravok walked to the door. He paused. "Just remember, mother," he said softly, "if she bleeds, I burn the forest down." He left, but the feeling of dread didn't leave him. It settled in his gut, heavy and cold. Something inside him shifted. The wolf was scratching at the door, anxious. It knew what the man refused to admit. This wasn't a hunt. It was a trap.
The forest was a nightmare of green and gray. Rynna stepped over a rotting log. Her boots sank into the mud. Squish. She hated nature. Nature didn't have Wi-Fi. It didn't have coffee. And it certainly didn't have paved roads. "Keep up," Alara called out. The older woman was 20 yards ahead, moving through the underbrush like a ghost. She wore traditional leather hunting gear. Rynna wore a waterproof tactical jacket she had bought online overnight. She looked like a spy who had gotten lost on a camping trip. No matter how hard she tried, Rynna couldn't move silently. Every step was a crunch of leaves. "You are loud," Alara criticized, not looking back. "A deer would hear you from a mile away." "I'm not trying to sneak up on a deer," Rynna muttered. "I'm trying not to twist my ankle." They were deep in the woods now. The mist was curling around the trees, white and thick. It dampened sound. It made the world feel small, claustrophobic. Rynna stopped. She tilted her head. She wasn't a tracker. She didn't know the difference between a pine marten and a badger. But she was an operations director. She knew patterns. And she knew when a pattern was broken. The birds had stopped singing. "Wait," Rynna said. Alara sighed. She turned around, looking annoyed. "What is it now? Did you break a nail?" "Quiet," Rynna hissed. She stepped closer to the older woman. Her heart started to pound. Thump. Thump. Listen, Rynna whispered. No birds. No wind. Alara frowned. She sniffed the air. I smell nothing. Exactly, Rynna said. Her brain was racing. We're downwind. We should smell pine, damp earth. But there's a chemical smell, like sulfur. Without warning, a twig snapped. It wasn't a deer. It was too heavy. Rynna looked into the mist. Shadows were moving. Not four-legged shadows. Two-legged ones. Rogues, Alara gasped. Her face went pale. Here? Inside the perimeter? Before she could move, a whistling sound cut the air. Thwip. An arrow slammed into the tree right where Alara's head had been a second ago. Down! Rynna screamed. Her body moved on instinct. She tackled the Queen Mother. They hit the mud hard. Rynna covered Alara's body with her own. Get off me! Alara shouted, struggling. Stay down! Rynna pinned her. She looked up. Figures emerged from the mist. Wolves, ragged, scarred, feral. Their eyes were red with madness. There were at least 10 of them, and behind them, watching from the ridge, was a man in a gray suit. Vane. He smiled. He raised a hand. Kill the old one, Vane ordered calmly. Bring me the girl. Rynna's fear vanished. It was replaced by the cold, hard clarity of a crisis. She wasn't the prey. She was the director. And she was about to liquidate some assets. Run, Rynna told Alara. She stood up. She reached into her boot and pulled out her hunting knife. It was small. The wolves were big. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was suicide. But Rynna bared her teeth and snarled.
The howl tore through the forest. It wasn't a howl of triumph. It was a howl of pain. Ravok stopped dead. He was miles away, leading the main party of guards. But his mate bond vibrated like a plucked guitar string. Rynna. Sir? Kale asked, stopping beside him. Did you hear that? Without another word, Ravok shifted. He didn't bother with the clothes. He let the change take him. Bones cracked, muscles reshaped. In a blink, the man was gone. In his place stood a massive, midnight black wolf. The king. He dug his claws into the earth and launched himself forward. He ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. The trees were a blur. The wind whipped his fur. Panic. It flooded through the bond. Sharp, acidic. It was Rynna's panic. He pushed harder. His lungs burned. Hold on. He pushed the thought toward her. I am coming. Hold on. Minutes later, he smelled it. Blood. It wasn't deer blood. It was the metallic, rich scent of royal blood. His mother. And beneath that, vanilla. He burst into the clearing. He skidded to a halt. His claws tore furrows in the ground. The scene was a slaughterhouse. 5 rogue wolves lay dead, their throats slit with surgical precision. But Rynna was gone. Alara was gone. Ravok shifted back to human form. He fell to his knees in the mud. He was naked, shaking with rage. Mother, he roared. Rynna, silence answered him. Then, he saw it, near the edge of the river bank. A small, silver object. He crawled toward it. His hand shook as he picked it up. It was the golden stapler. It was dented, covered in mud, and it was lying next to a scorch mark on the ground. Scorch marks, shattered earth, sonic grenade. His military mind analyzed. They had used tech to separate them. He looked at the river. The water was raging, swollen from the rain. It churned white and deadly against the rocks. If she had fallen in. As the sky darkened, a sound came from behind him, a whimper. He spun around. One of the rogue wolves was still alive, barely. Its spine was crushed. Ravok marched over. He didn't look like a king. He looked like death. He grabbed the rogue by the throat. Where are they? Ravok whispered. The rogue coughed blood. He grinned, his teeth stained red. Vane, the rogue rasped. He took the queen. And the girl? Ravok squeezed. Where is the girl? The rogue's eyes rolled back. The river took her. Ravok dropped the body. He stood up. He looked at the rushing water. It was moving fast, too fast. She was gone, swept away. In that moment, Ravok's heart didn't break. It shattered. And then, it froze. He threw his head back and screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated loss that made the trees shake. The king was dead. The monster had arrived.
Pain. It was the only thing Rynna knew. It was a living thing, chewing on her leg. She coughed, expelling water and grit. Her lungs burned. Her body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. Eventually, she opened her eyes. Gray sky, gray water, gray rocks. She was lying on a riverbank, miles downstream from the ambush. Her tactical jacket was shredded. Her leg was twisted at a sickening angle. What followed was a scream that got stuck in her throat. She tried to move. The world spun. Black spots danced in her vision. "Stay down," a voice whispered. "It's easier to stay down." But then, she remembered. Alara, the ambush, the sonic grenade. Vane had them. As if pulled by a string, Rynna forced herself up. She dragged her body through the mud. Every inch was agony. Every breath was a battle. "Ravok," she croaked. Her voice was broken glass. She had to warn him. She had to tell him his mother wasn't dead, she was taken. She grabbed a sturdy branch. She used it as a crutch. She stood up, swaying like a sapling in a storm. Despite that, she started walking. 1 step, pain. 2 steps, fire. She didn't look back at the river. She looked toward the distant spires of the palace. It was miles away. No matter how hard she tried, the distance didn't seem to close. Time blurred. She became a machine of suffering. Walk, bleed, walk, bleed. She hit the paved road near the city limits. A truck honked. Someone shouted. Rynna didn't hear them. She was focused on the gates. By the time she reached the palace, the sun was setting. The guards at the gate gasped. They saw a woman covered in mud, river slime, and dried blood. "Open the gate," she rasped. "Miss Sinclair?" a guard asked, horrified. "Let me in." They scrambled to open the heavy iron doors. Rynna stumbled through. She didn't stop for water. She didn't stop for medical aid. She had one destination, the council chamber. She knew Ravok would be there. He would be planning the rescue. Or the funeral. As her wolf stirred, she pushed through the pain. She burst through the double doors of the chamber. "Ravok!" she screamed, but the room wasn't filled with relief. It was filled with silence. And standing at the head of the table, looking pristine in a fresh gray suit, was Vane. He turned to her. He smiled. A sad, pitying smile that made Rynna's blood freeze. "Oh, Rynna," Vane said softly. "We were just talking about you." The room smelled of polished wood and judgment. Rynna leaned on her stick, gasping for air. Water dripped from her clothes, creating a dark puddle on the expensive rug. Ravok was there. He stood by the throne. He looked wild. His shirt was torn, his hair messy. He looked like he had torn the forest apart with his bare hands. When he saw her, his eyes widened. Hope raw and desperate flared in his face. "Rynna!" He took a step forward. Before he could move further, Vane spoke. "Stay back, Your Majesty," Vane warned. His voice was sharp. "She is dangerous." "She is my mate," Ravok roared. "She is a murderer," Vane corrected. In that moment, the world tilted. Rynna blinked. "What?" Vane reached onto the table. He picked up an object wrapped in a clear evidence bag. It was a knife. A hunting knife. Her hunting knife. And it was coated in fresh, bright red blood. "We found this at the scene," Vane said, his voice dripping with fake sorrow. "Embedded in a tree, covered in the Queen Mother's blood." Rynna shook her head. "No, I used that to cut a branch. I dropped it when the grenade hit." "You dropped it," Vane said smoothly. after you slit the Queen Mother's throat to clear your path to the throne. Liar! Rynna screamed. She lunged forward, but her broken leg gave way. She collapsed to her knees. He took her. Ravok, listen to me. Vane took her, the council members muttered. They looked at Rynna, bloody, wild, violent. Then they looked at Vane, calm, collected, rational. The evidence is irrefutable, the head elder said, his voice shaking. The scent on the knife is yours, Miss Sinclair, and the blood is Alara's. I was trying to save her, Rynna cried. Tears mixed with the mud on her face. She looked at Ravok. Please, you have to believe me. Ravok stood frozen. He was staring at her. He was sniffing the air. With every heartbeat, the tension ratcheted up. She smells of blood, Vane pointed out helpfully. Look at her. She is covered in it. It was true. Rynna was covered in blood. But it was rogue blood. It was her own blood. Whatever Ravok smelled, it wasn't innocence. It was death. Arrest her, the head elder ordered. No! Rynna tried to stand. I didn't do it. Guards moved in. They grabbed her arms. They kicked her stick away. Pain exploded in her leg. She screamed. Ravok, she begged. She watched him. She watched the man who had claimed her. She waited for him to tear them apart. She waited for the fire. Instead, he closed his eyes. He turned his face away. And Rynna's heart finally stopped beating.
Her name hung in the air, a plea that cut him deeper than any blade. Ravok kept his eyes closed. If he opened them, he would kill everyone in the room. He smelled it. That was the damnation. He smelled his mother's blood. It was all over Rynna. It was in her hair, on her clothes, on her hands. His wolf howled in confusion. Mate, enemy, mate, enemy. Take her to the execution block, Vane suggested. His voice was eager, too eager. Justice must be swift. Without warning, Ravok's eyes snapped open. They were not amber. They were red. Stop, he commanded. The alpha voice hit the guards like a physical blow. They dropped Rynna's arms. She fell to the floor, sobbing. Ravok walked toward her. Every step was heavy. Every step was a decision that tore his soul in half. He knew. Deep in his gut, he knew Rynna hadn't done this. She had fought for his mother. He had seen the dead rogues, but the council saw blood. The law saw murder. If he fought them now, he would be declared unstable. Vane would win, and Rynna would be killed in the chaos. He had to play the game, even if it meant breaking her heart. He stood over her. She looked up at him, her eyes searching his. Ravok, she whispered. Tell them. As the silence roared, Ravok hardened his face into a mask of stone. The evidence is grave, Ravok said. His voice was devoid of emotion. Cold, dead. Rynna flinched as if he had slapped her. However, Ravok continued, turning to the council. Under the ancient laws, a suspect of royal crimes cannot be executed without a full investigation. The body has not been found. But the blood, Vane started. I said. Ravok snarled, turning on Vane. The body has not been found. Vane shut his mouth. He stepped back. Ravok looked back down at Rynna. He had to do this. He had to put her somewhere. Vane couldn't reach her. Somewhere safe. Take her to the Iron Tower, Ravok ordered. Rynna gasped. The tower? Ravok, that's a dungeon. Lock her up, Ravok said, turning his back on her. And double the guard. No one goes in. No one comes out. Ravok, she screamed. 2 guards dragged her away. She fought. She cried his name. As the echo faded, Ravok stood alone in the center of the room. He listened until the heavy iron doors down the hall slammed shut. Boom. The sound was final. Vane was smiling again. A wise decision, Your Majesty. We will prepare the trial. Ravok looked at Vane. He let his wolf surface just enough for Vane to see the monster behind the man's eyes. Pray, Vane, Ravok whispered. Your Majesty, pray that I don't find my mother, Ravok said. Because if I find out you lied. He leaned in close. I will eat you alive. Ravok walked out. He needed air. He needed to scream. He had just locked his heart in a cage to save its life. To make things worse, he wasn't sure if she would ever forgive him.
The darkness was heavy. It had weight. Rynna lay curled on the stone floor of the cell. The iron tower lived up to its name. It smelled of rust, damp mold, and centuries of despair. Her leg throbbed with a rhythm that matched the pounding in her head. Boom, boom, boom. She shivered. Her clothes were still wet, stiffening as they dried. In the quiet that followed, the silence was worse than the screaming. She closed her eyes. All she could see was Ravok's face, the cold, dead look in his eyes when he turned his back on her. Lock her up, he had said. Not save her. Not, I love her. Lock her up. She was foolish. She had thought she was the heroine of a romance novel, the poor girl who gets the prince. What's worse, she realized she was actually the tragedy, the girl who gets framed and forgotten in the dark. A tear slipped out, hot, salty. It traced a line through the mud on her cheek. Stupid, she whispered, her voice cracked. Stupid, stupid Rynna. She shifted her weight. Pain shot up her leg. She gasped, clutching her side. As she moved, a scent wafted up from her ruined jacket. It wasn't blood. It wasn't river water. It was cheap cologne. And bitterness. Vain. Rynna froze. She brought the fabric to her nose. Yes, it was faint, but it was there. The scent from the fight in the woods. Between one breath and the next, her tears stopped. She wasn't crying because she was sad. She was crying because she was overwhelmed. But Rynna Sinclair didn't get overwhelmed. Rynna Sinclair managed crises. She sat up. She wiped her face with a muddy sleeve. Vane had planned this. Every step, the gala, the poison, the hunt, the frame-up. He didn't just want the throne. He wanted to destroy Ravok by destroying her. As if the world narrowed, the despair evaporated. In its place, a cold, hard anger began to crystallize. It was sharp, useful. She looked at the door. It was a heavy steel slab with a small electronic keypad and a manual override keyhole. Old tech. He thinks I'm a damsel, Rynna whispered to the dark. She reached under her jacket. She found the hem of her corset, the expensive, ridiculous undergarment Alara had insisted she wear for the traditional hunt. She ripped the seam. A long, thin steel boning wire slid into her hand. Maybe it was fate, or maybe it was just good engineering. Rynna gripped the wire. She dragged herself toward the door. She wasn't waiting for the king anymore. The king was bound by laws. She was the director, and she was about to conduct a hostile takeover.
The crown sat on the table. It was gold, encrusted with diamonds, and it looked like a shackle. Ravok stared at it. He sat in his private study, the lights off. Shadows danced on the walls, mocking him. He had sent her away. He had sent the only thing that made his heart beat into the coldest place in the kingdom. To make things worse, he knew Vane was winning. The door opened. Light spilled in. Your Majesty? It was Vane. Of course. The beta walked in without knocking. He carried a stack of papers. He looked comfortable. Get out, Ravok said. He didn't look up. We need to discuss the funeral arrangements, Vane said, stepping closer. And the trial. The council is eager to resolve this. They are suggesting tomorrow morning. Ravok's hand clenched into a fist. There is no body, Vane. The river is deep. Vane sighed theatrically. We may never find poor Alara, but we must move on. The kingdom needs stability. The kingdom needs leadership. He placed the papers next to the crown. Ravok looked at the beta. He saw the gleam in Vane's eyes. It was hunger. Vane wanted Ravok to snap. He wanted Ravok to shift, to kill him, to break the law. Then the council would have no choice but to remove the mad king and install the regent. Ravok was trapped in a cage of his own making. Despite that, The wolf inside him was clawing at his chest. "Kill him," it urged. "Rip his throat out." "Leave the papers," Ravok said. His voice sounded hollow. Defeated. Vane smiled. "Very good, sir. You are showing great restraint." Vane turned to leave. At the door, he paused. "Oh, and sir, I've ordered the guards at the tower to be thorough. We wouldn't want the prisoner hurting herself before the execution." The door clicked shut. Ravok didn't move. He couldn't. If he moved, he would burn the palace to the ground. Eventually, he stood up. He walked to the window. He looked toward the iron tower in the distance. It was a black spike against the moon. "Forgive me, Rynna," he whispered. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. He was the strongest wolf in the world, and he had never felt so powerless. As the silence roared, a single realization hit him. The law couldn't save her. The crown couldn't save her. If he wanted her back, he would have to stop being a king. He would have to become a traitor.
Click. The sound was tiny, but in the silence of the cell, it sounded like a gunshot. Rynna held her breath. She twisted the corset wire 1 more millimeter to the left. She knew this lock. It was a Series 4 maglock. The Wolf Hotel used the same contractor for the service elevators. The vulnerability was in the tumbling mechanism. If you tripped the manual override, the electronic seal disengaged. With every heartbeat, she expected the alarm to blare. She waited. Nothing. The green light on the keypad flickered. Then, it turned solid. Open. Rynna slumped against the door, sweat dripping down her nose. She had done it. But then, the real problem started. She pushed the door open. Just a crack. A guard was standing 10 feet away. He was huge, bored. He was leaning against the wall, scrolling on his phone. Rynna looked at her leg. It was useless for running. She looked at her hands. No weapons, just a piece of wire and a lot of rage. She didn't know what scared her more, dying in this cell, or what she was about to do. She took a deep breath. She reached down and picked up a small stone from the floor. She threw it down the hall. Clatter. The guard looked up. "Hello?" He walked toward the sound. He passed her cell door. In the span of a breath, Rynna moved. She didn't stand. She lunged from the ground. She wrapped the corset wire around his ankle and yanked with every ounce of strength she had left. The guard grunted. He crashed to the floor, face first. Thud. Before he could scramble up, Rynna was on him. She didn't have wolf strength, but she knew anatomy. She jammed her thumb into the pressure point behind his ear. Hard. The guard gasped. His eyes rolled back. He went limp. Rynna collapsed on top of him, panting. Her adrenaline was spiking so hard her vision blurred. She checked his belt. Keys. Radio. Taser. She took them all. She dragged herself up using the guard's unconscious body as a brace. She holstered the taser. In that moment, the director of operations was gone. The woman standing in the hallway was something else entirely. She was bruised, bloody, and broken, but her eyes were dry. She looked at the comms device in her hand. It was crackling with static. She shouldn't go to the palace. Vane would expect that. She shouldn't run to the border. She would never make it. Instead, she remembered something. The smell on Vane's clothes. The hydroelectric plant. It was the only place with enough power to run the dampening field they had used in the woods. It was abandoned, isolated. "I'm coming for you, Vane," she whispered. She limped toward the exit. As if fate whispered, a plan formed in her mind. It was reckless. It was dangerous. It was perfect. The night air hit her like a slap. Rynna stumbled out of the service exit of the iron tower. Rain was falling again. It washed the prison smell off her skin, but it couldn't wash away the pain. With every step she took, fire shot up her leg. She bit her lip until it bled to keep from screaming. She was free, technically. But then, she looked at the perimeter fence. Guards were patrolling. Searchlights swept the yard. If she ran, they would see her. If she stayed, they would find the guard she knocked out. Because of that, she didn't run. She limped toward the parking bay. There was a row of security bikes, fast, agile, and loud. Rynna reached the closest one. She fumbled with the guard's keys she had stolen. Her hands were shaking. Come morning, she would be a fugitive, or she would be dead. Right now, she didn't care. She jammed the key in. The engine roared to life. Vroom. A guard turned. Hey! In the span of a breath, Rynna gunned the throttle. The bike shot forward. It almost threw her off. She gripped the handles, her knuckles white. She aimed for the open gate. Stop her! Someone yelled. A bullet whizzed past her ear. Zing. Rynna didn't duck. She leaned into the turn. The bike fishtailed on the wet asphalt. She corrected it. She blasted through the gate, leaving the shouting guards behind. As the wind shifted, she didn't turn toward the border. She turned toward the river, toward the industrial district. She drove fast. The wind stung her eyes. The vibration of the engine rattled her broken bones. Because she knew where Vane was hiding. He was at the hydroelectric plant. It was the only place with enough power to hide his dampening field. It was the only place loud enough to mask a scream. In fact, it was the perfect place for a murder. Rynna gritted her teeth. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain. She wasn't going to let Vane win. She wasn't going to let Ravok live with the guilt of executing an innocent mate. So, she twisted the throttle harder. She wasn't the prey anymore. Tonight, the rabbit was coming for the wolf.
The cell door was open. Ravok stood in the doorway. His chest heaved. He stared at the empty stone floor. A beat later, he looked at the guard. The man was unconscious, tied up with corset wire. Ravok blinked. A laugh bubbled up in his throat. It was a dark, dangerous sound. She had escaped. His little, spreadsheet-loving, rule-following mate had taken down a 200-pound guard and picked a Series 4 lock. But then, the fear hit him. Where did she go? He stepped into the hall. He closed his eyes. He inhaled deeply. Sniff, rain, fear, adrenaline, and engine exhaust. He tracked the scent. It didn't lead to the city. It didn't lead to the safe houses. Instead, it led toward the river, toward the old district. Ravok's eyes snapped open. The hydro plant. He realized it instantly. Vane had been smelling of ozone and stagnant water. Rynna must have smelled it too, which meant she wasn't running away. She was hunting Vane. Alone. With a broken leg. No, Ravok growled. You stubborn, brilliant idiot. He didn't run for the stairs. That was too slow. Driven by instinct, he turned to the window at the end of the hall. He sprinted. As if pulled by a string, he launched himself through the glass. Shatter. Shards of glass rained down around him as he fell 3 stories. Before he hit the ground, he shifted. Bones cracked. Fur exploded. He landed on 4 paws. The impact cracked the pavement. He didn't stop. He dug his claws in and pushed. He was a blur of black shadow moving through the night. With every heartbeat, he prayed. He prayed he was fast enough. He prayed she wasn't dead. And he promised the moon one thing. If Vane had touched her, there would be nothing left of the beta to bury.
The plant was a monster. It loomed out of the mist, a massive concrete skeleton. The roar of the water turbines was deafening. The ground vibrated beneath Rynna's boots. She hid the bike in the bushes. She limped toward the side entrance. To make things worse, her leg was numb. That was bad. Numb meant damage. She didn't care. She used the guard's keycard on the electronic lock. It beeped red. Access denied. Come on, she whispered. She tried again. Beep. Red. Eventually, she remembered. Vane was arrogant. He wouldn't change the codes. He would just override them. She punched in the general master code for the hotel. Vane used it for everything because he was too lazy to remember new numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4 wolf. Click. Green. Rynna almost laughed. Idiot. She slipped inside. The noise was louder here. It smelled of electricity and rust. She moved through the shadows. She climbed a metal walkway. Below her, the massive turbines spun, churning the black water. It was a pit of death. Then, she saw them. In the center of the control room floor, Queen Mother Elara was tied to a chair. She looked battered, but alive. Her head was up. She was glaring at Vane. Vane was pacing. He was holding a phone. He looked frantic. She escaped? Vane yelled into the phone. What do you mean she escaped? She has a broken leg. Rynna crouched behind a control panel. She gripped the taser. In that moment, she realized the truth. Vane was scared. He was losing control. Find her, Vane screamed. Find her and kill her before Ravok figures it out. Rynna took a breath. She stood up. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't an alpha. On the other hand, she was really good at firing people. You're looking in the wrong place, Vane, she said loudly. Vane spun around. He dropped the phone. He stared up at the walkway. He saw her. Rynna stood there, wet, bloody, holding a taser like it was Excalibur. Rynna? Vane whispered. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. The meeting is over, Rynna said. Her voice didn't shake. And you are definitely not getting that bonus. As the silence roared between the turbine spins, Vane's shock turned into a sneer. You came alone? He asked. He started to laugh. You stupid girl. You brought yourself right to the slaughter. He started to shift. His clothes ripped. Fur sprouted. Snout elongated. Before she could move, he was a wolf. A gray, mangy, vicious wolf. He snarled. He crouched to spring. Rynna didn't run. She turned on the taser. Zap. Come and get it, she challenged. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was just the final stand of a woman who had nothing left to lose. Zap. The blue arc of electricity hit Vane's snout. He didn't drop. He howled a sound of pure, insulted rage. The taser scorched his fur, but it didn't stop a 300-pound wolf. Before she could scream, he lunged. Rynna threw herself to the side. Her broken leg screamed. It felt like a hot iron was being twisted inside her bone. She hit the metal grating of the walkway hard. Clang. Vane's jaws snapped shut inches from her boot. The sound was like a pistol crack. Rynna! Behind you! Elara screamed from the chair below. Rynna scrambled backward. She was cornered. To her left, the control panel. To her right, the railing. Below, the black, churning water of the turbine pit. Vane stalked toward her. He was playing with his food. He growled, a low vibration that rattled Rynna's teeth. His yellow eyes were laughing. In that moment, Rynna realized she couldn't win a physical fight. She was a director. She didn't have claws. On the other hand, she had leverage. She grabbed a heavy wrench from the maintenance belt hanging on the rail. You want the throne, Vane? She shouted over the roar of the turbines. You can't even handle a crippled human. Vane snarled. He crouched, muscles coiled. Before she could move, he sprang. He was a gray blur. Rynna swung the wrench. Crack. It connected with his shoulder, but the force of his impact threw her against the control panel. The breath left her lungs. Whoosh. Vane pinned her. His heavy paws pressed into her chest. His drool dripped onto her face. It burned. He opened his jaws, aiming for her throat. Get off her! Clang. Elara had tipped her chair over. She was dragging herself across the floor, still tied, trying to distract him. Vane turned his head. He looked at the Queen Mother. He looked back at Rynna. He made a choice. He stepped off Rynna. He moved toward Elara. No! Rynna gasped. She tried to stand, but her leg collapsed. Vane! Look at me! Vane ignored her. He wanted to hurt Ravok. And the best way to hurt Ravok was to kill his mother first. Rynna dragged herself toward the emergency steam release valve on the wall. It was her only card left. With desperate clarity, she gripped the wheel. It was hot. blistering hot. "Eat this," she whispered. She yanked the wheel. Hiss. A jet of scalding steam blasted out, aimed directly at Vane. He yelped. He stumbled back, blinded by the white fog. But then, the alarm started blaring. Whoop, whoop, critical pressure. A computerized voice announced. Explosion, imminent. Rynna froze. Vane hadn't just sabotaged the dampeners. He had rigged the plant to blow. What's worse, Vane emerged from the steam. He was burned, mad, and he was done playing. He charged at Rynna. She closed her eyes. She raised the wrench. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe, she prayed, the alpha was faster than the explosion.
The scent of burning ozone hit him first. Then, the smell of her blood. Ravok didn't just run. He flew. He was a shadow against the moon as he reached the skylight of the plant. Below him, he saw the nightmare, the steam, the flashing red lights. Vane, a gray stain on the world midair, aiming for Rynna's throat. Driven by fury, Ravok shattered the glass. Crash. He fell. He didn't brace for impact. He aimed for the gray wolf. He hit Vane like a meteorite. Thud. The force of the impact cracked the concrete floor. Ravok sank his teeth into Vane's shoulder. He tasted the sour, corrupted blood of a traitor. Vane screamed. He thrashed. He was big, but Ravok was the king. Ravok shook him. Snap. He threw Vane across the room. Vane hit the railing, denting the steel. Ravok stood over Rynna. He placed his massive black body between her and the threat. He growled. It was a sound from the depths of hell. Mine. Rynna looked up at him. She was pale, bleeding, but her eyes were fierce. Ravok, she yelled. The pressure valve. He rigged it. The plant is going to blow. Ravok looked at the control panel. Lights were flashing red. Time stood still. He had a choice. Kill Vane, or save the pack, and the city, from the explosion. Vane saw the hesitation. The gray wolf scrambled up. He lunged not at Ravok, but at the railing. He was trying to jump into the river to escape. Not today. Ravok launched himself. He caught Vane by the hind leg just as he vaulted the rail. Ravok dragged him back. Vane clawed at the floor. He whimpered. He shifted back to human form, naked and pathetic. Mercy, Vane begged. I surrender. Ravok shifted. The change was painful, instant. He stood there, naked, breathing hard. His eyes were burning gold. You touched my mate, Ravok whispered. Please, Vane cried. I can help you. I can. You can fly, Ravok said. He grabbed Vane by the neck. He didn't hesitate. With a single glance at the spinning black blades of the turbine below, Ravok threw him. Vane screamed. A long, terrified wail. Chunk. The sound was wet. Final. The turbine blades didn't stop. The scream did. Ravok spun around. Rynna. She was already at the panel. She was typing furiously. Her hands were shaking. I can't. The code is locked, she cried. It's a logic puzzle. I need time. We don't have time, Ravok shouted. He ran to Alara, ripping the ropes off his mother. 10 seconds, the computer announced. Rynna, run, Ravok commanded. He grabbed his mother. No. Rynna didn't look up. I can fix it. In that split second, Ravok saw the woman he loved. She wasn't running. She was solving the problem. He dropped his mother's hand. He ran to Rynna. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, shielding her body with his. Together, he whispered into her ear. 5, 4. Rynna typed one final command. Enter. 3, 2. The red lights turned green. Hiss. The turbine slowed. The alarm died. Silence crashed into the room. As the echo faded, Ravok buried his face in Rynna's wet, dirty hair. He held her so tight his muscles shook. You crazy, brilliant woman, he breathed. Rynna slumped against him. She let out a sob. I quit, she mumbled into his chest. I definitely quit.
Eventually, the flashing lights arrived. But it wasn't just the police. It was the council. They stormed into the plant, flanked by the royal guard. The head elder stopped short. He saw the scene. Vane was gone. Alara was sitting on a crate, drinking water from a dirty cup. Ravok was holding Rynna, refusing to let the paramedics touch her until he approved them. "Your Majesty," the elder gasped. "We heard. An explosion? Where is the prisoner?" He pointed at Rynna. "Arrest her," the elder commanded. "She escaped the tower." Guards stepped forward. Before the words left her lips, Alara stood up. She limped forward. She looked small, bruised, and tired, but she had the presence of a tidal wave. Slap. The sound echoed off the concrete walls. Alara had slapped the head elder across the face. The room froze. "You will not touch her," Alara said. Her voice was quiet, deadly. "This woman fought a wolf with a wrench to save me. She hacked a bomb to save you. She is the fiercest warrior I have ever seen." She turned to Rynna. She bowed her head. A deep, respectful bow. "If anyone questions her place as queen," Alara declared, looking at the council, "they answer to me." Rynna felt tears prick her eyes. She looked at Ravok. He was beaming. It was a terrified, proud, awestruck smile. "I told you," Ravok whispered. "You have teeth." 6 months later, the royal gardens smelled of lilies. Rynna stood by the altar. She adjusted the flower arrangement. It was 3 degrees off-center. "Perfect," she murmured. She wore white. Not a suit. A dress. Silk, lace, and diamonds. It hugged her curves and hid the faint scar on her leg. "Stop organizing the wedding, Rynna," a voice teased. She turned. Ravok stood there. He looked devastating in a tuxedo, but his eyes were soft. "I can't help it," she said, smiling. "I'm the director." "You're the queen," he corrected. He walked to her. He took her hands. His skin was warm. His scent, rain, musk, home, wrapped around her. As the breeze caught her veil, the music started. The pack was watching. The world was watching. "Are you ready?" he asked. Rynna looked at the crowd. She saw Alara winking at her. She saw the new general manager sweating nervously near the buffet. "I'm ready," she said. Ravok leaned in. "Just promise me one thing." "What?" "No more throwing ice water on the boss." Rynna laughed. She pulled him down by his lapels. "Only if the boss behaves," she whispered. In that moment, he kissed her. It wasn't a polite, royal kiss. It was hungry, possessive. It promised trouble and joy and a lifetime of storms. And as the crowd cheered, Rynna realized something. She hadn't just survived the rain. She had become the storm.